Hey, what's up, guys? This is Murph, and today I'm bringing you another Frost Mage video. This time we're going to be covering a plus 11 Ara-Kara key that I ran earlier today, where we were able to do just shy of 8.2 million overall damage throughout the course of the dungeon. I also wanted to make this video to showcase some new weak auras and trackers that I have implemented into my UI to track Winter's Chill and Icicles to hopefully help with the visual clarity so that you guys can hopefully understand more so what I'm doing throughout a key, so you guys can understand where I'm sitting at with, again, my icicles, my procs, and my Winter's Chill. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below. I'm also thinking about maybe doing a video covering my UI, all of my add-ons, as well as some macros that I use as a Frost Mage. So again, if you guys want to see that, definitely let me know down below. But with that said, let's get into the video. All right, so getting going in this key, I was under the impression that this was going to be a plus 10, but when we zoned in, our group leader said, whoops, I didn't realize this was an 11. Should I send it? So I said, send it. So we're doing an 11 today. As you guys can see, here is my current gear. We're currently 708 item level. Also, we're going to use Prismatic Barrier before the key starts so that the cooldown gets reset once the key is actually started. As you guys can see down here, my Prismatic Barrier is available again. Here are the talents that we're going to be running in this dungeon. Same setup that we've been running in the past couple of videos. So at the very start of Ara-Kara, you want to have your tank run ahead and get aggro on all of the mobs leading up to the mini-boss. One thing to make note of is that I've had some tanks, especially immobile tanks, think like a Blood Death Knight or a Guardian Druid, who will just run through these mobs without using any sort of ability on the mobs, like a Thrash or a Blood Boil, and they'll just kind of run through. And when that happens, it's very, very easy for the tank to lose aggro, especially if your healer decides to start healing, because there are going to be poisons that are going to start going out on the group before you make it to the mini boss, and your healer might have to start healing. So ideally, like our Demon Hunter is doing here, you want to have your tank run forward and actually use some sort of ability to generate aggro through damage on these mobs to make it less likely that they're going to lose aggro. So as you guys will see, as we're moving forward, on this pole, what you can do here, you have the mini boss up here, and you can either chain all these mobs into the mini boss and just do that pole by itself, and then you can kill the two attendants afterwards. Another route that you can do here is all of these mobs that we just pulled. You can actually gather and pull this right attendant, because this pack is going to patrol this way towards the bridge that I'm currently standing on. Or you guys can do what we do here and pull everything. Make sure that you're kicking these. Luckily, we have a Demon Hunter, so what you'll see here is as our Demon Hunter goes in, gets aggro on everything, he's going to drop a Sigil of Flame over here to generate aggro and get threat instantly. Also, what he's going to do, as you guys can see here, this blue sigil on the ground, that is Sigil of Silence. So it's going to silence both of these attendants, forcing them to run into the mini-boss. So while he's doing that, we're going to pop Lust, we're going to pop all our cooldowns, we're going to do our basic Frost Mage AoE rotation of building up our Death's Chill. I went all the way up to 15, and then as you guys can see, you know, I'm throwing out Comet Storm, Frozen Orb, and Blizzard. We're using Cone of Cold to reset it, and then we're doing it again. What you also want to do here is try and use Supernova and Blast Wave to interrupt the casts. Again, these attendants and the mini-boss are going to be spamming Web Bolts, so anything that you can do in terms of actually kicking or disrupting these casts goes a really long way. One thing that you want to make note of here, we killed this mini-boss so fast that he only ever cast it one time right here at the very end. I kicked the Horrifying Shrill, so you need to make sure that you always have one player ready to kick the Horrifying Shrill. If that cast goes off, it's going to fear everyone in the group for about 5 seconds, and with all the webs on the floor and all the casts going off and all the poisons going out, there's a very high likelihood that people are going to die or you're going to wipe. And this is a very important pull to not wipe on, because it's the very first pull of the dungeon. You committed your Bloodlust, you committed all your cooldowns, you probably committed a bunch of defensives. Your healer is probably, you know, spent on a lot of big healing cooldowns, so a wipe here would set you back a lot. So you need to make sure that you are kicking this Horrifying Shrill every single time. Generally, in most of my groups, the tank is the one who opts to take care of the Horrifying Shrill cast. But as you guys can see there, I had my interrupt up and available, so I just kicked it immediately just to make sure that it wasn't going to go through. So we're going to finish this pack off, and then we're going to move ahead to the next platform. So we actually got the Void Emissary spawning right after we killed that pack, which is kind of nice because we don't have to worry about trying to kill it while we're in the middle of a pull, and we're going to be able to go into this next pull with the versatility buff that it gives us. So in this pull, there's going to be a bunch of crawler mobs alongside this attendant. So the attendant, just make sure you're kicking it as often as you can. The Resonant Barrage is a pretty important cast, so you want to try and kick that. But unfortunately, I got aggro here, so whenever that happens, if you guys ever get aggro like that, use Greater Invisibility. That is your get out of jail free card if you ever have aggro. So These crawlers are going to be putting stacking poisons out on the group. This is actually a way more dangerous pull than it seems, especially from a healer point of view. Also, if your group doesn't really have poison dispels, which our group doesn't, the healer's just going to have to, heal through these straight up. So these crawlers are very deadly. You can pull a lot of them together, but just make note of our health bars, how we are yo-yoing up and down. So you might want to think about using defensives here. Also, as a mage, we can use Supernova, Blast Wave if we feel like that might help here. But I feel like these poisons kind of just go out instantly. So, stop abilities aren't really going to prevent that. So again, just focus on keeping yourself alive here. The poisons, they hurt a lot. And as you guys can see here, we also got another Void Emissary going into this pull. So we're going to have another versatility buff going into this mini boss. So this mini boss is easier than the first one. It's going to be casting web bolts again. So you want to be trying to kick those as often as possible. As you guys can see, I got hit there and it was like 70-80% of my health. Importantly, though, this boss is going to cast this ability called Call of the Brood. And what this does is throughout the course of the cast, it's going to be doing AoE damage to the entire group. This on higher level keys hurts really badly. So you might want to think about using a defensive here or something just to mitigate some of the damage that is going out. But the more important part of this cast is that once the cast is finished, the boss is going to summon a bunch of little spiders. There's going to be about 10 little spider guys that are going to spawn. And these guys are not going to be focused on anyone in particular. They will just start attacking whoever the closest player to them is. So ideally, what you want to do is be close up to the boss. As you can see, pretty much our whole group is relatively close. We could have all been closer, but as you guys will see, there's going to be a bunch of little ads that spawn right here. And my nameplates are red, indicating that they could be aggroed on me, or they could just not have, aggro towards anyone yet. But as you guys can see, it looks like 2 spiders spawn on each player's location. And so these spiders are just going to immediately start attacking whoever's closest to them. So what this means is if you're, standing really far back, these spiders are going to start hitting you. And on high level keys, these guys hurt a lot. So ideally, you want to be really close up to the boss next to your tank if you can, so that your tank can use some sort of AoE ability to immediately generate threat on these guys. As you guys can see here, the green nameplate indicates that I do not have aggro. Red indicates that, I do. So again, you want to be up close to the tank so that your tank can quickly and easily get aggro on those guys so no one's in any danger of dying. Moving on ahead to the final mini boss here. So you're going to have this attendant mob here. As you can see, it's going to sit here and cast web bolts. So what you'll see is I kick this immediately to put my kick on cooldown, because we want to kick this mob as much as we can so that it will walk up towards the mini boss so that we can cleave it down. So what you want to do, ideally, if you have a Death Knight, you could just death grip this into the mini boss. A lot of times your group isn't going to have a Death Knight, so you need to make sure you have multiple people assigned to kick this mob. So I kicked it first. I'm not sure who kicks it second, but I know our Demon Hunter puts down a Sigil of Silence on top of it, which is going to cause it to walk up into all of our AoE and our cleave so that we can easily kick it and stun it and cleave it down. So this is probably the easiest mini boss out of all 3. All it really does is cast poison bolts, so make sure you're interrupting what you can. It's going to do this frontal just like the other 2. Make sure you're not getting hit by that. And on top of that, there's going to be a bunch of web that is going to be spawning on the floor. And then finally, the boss is going to shoot poisonous clouds on the ground. As you can see right here, that green circle. Just make sure you're not standing in it. Again, avoid the frontal and make sure you're not standing in the bad while you're keeping up on kicks. And this mini boss goes down relatively easily. And with the third mini boss going down, this is going to start the RP to activate the first boss of the dungeon. So what you guys are going to see us do is grab both of these packs of non-elite mobs and pull them into the boss. As a Frost Mage, this is really, really nice because as you'll see, I'm going to throw out a Frozen Orb, drop a Blizzard, and use Icy Veins. And I'm going to stack up my Death Chill all the way to 15. So I'm going to be having max Death Chill stacks right as the fight starts. So one of the main abilities that this boss does right here is an ability called Alerting Shrill. So this is a channeled ability that throughout the course of the cast is going to be doing AoE damage to the entire group. So this is a great time in this fight to think about using a defensive to help keep yourself alive. Once this cast is finished, these eggs over here in the bottom left-hand side of the screen are going to summon spiders. There's going to be 4 spiders that spawn every time. And what they do is they will fixate on a player and they will chase you down and they'll start meleeing you if they're too close. If these little spiders get too close to the boss, and when I say too close to the boss, I mean within the red circle around the boss when you're targeting it. If the spiders get too close within this red circle, the boss is going to eat them and get a permanent damage done increase for the rest of the fight. So the name of the game on this fight is kill all the little spiders as fast as possible without letting them touch the boss. So as you guys can see, We're at max death shield stacks. We're just pumping into the boss as much as we can. I used alter time there to regain all my health. What you guys will see here is we can use Code of Cold to get a reset on these ads to quickly nuke them down. So we get multiple frozen orbs. We get Comet Storm resets. As you guys can see, that first wave of ads got annihilated. So the next ability coming up is Gossamer Onslaught. So what this is going to do, it's another channeled ability where the boss is going to start summoning web puddles underneath every single player for the next couple of seconds. So about every second, there's going to be a new puddle that's going to attempt to spawn under you. If you get hit by this on high level keys, most likely going to get one shot. So ideally what you want to do, and as you can see what I'm doing right here, I'm positioned right next to the tank. And the reason you want to do this, you want to have as many people stack up as possible, is because this is going to leave permanent web patches on the ground pretty much for the rest of the fight. So as the fight goes on, the entire room is going to get covered by these web patches on the floor. So you want to keep them as contained as possible. So what you're going to see once Gossamer Onslaught starts going out, me and the tank are going to be sidestepping. So, one of the puddles is going to spawn and we sidestep it. The next puddle is going to spawn, we sidestep it. And the reason we do this is because it's going to keep the puddles as contained as possible. So again, we'll go ahead and play. As you can see, Gossamer Onslaught is coming out right now. Like I said, we're going to sidestep to the left to try and keep these puddles as close to the previous ones as possible so that these webs aren't taking up, the entire room as we're fighting the boss. Now from here, your tank can keep the boss relatively close to where these spiders are spawning. Again, you just want them to not get within the red targeting circle of the boss, but you can keep them close so that your melee don't have to run across the entire room and lose a lot of uptime on the boss. Also, any sort of cleave will be able to kind of cleave onto the boss as well because this hitbox is rather large. So again, as you guys will see here, Gossamer Onslaught is coming out. So I'm getting close to the tank. As you can see, a lot of our puddles are basically stacked right on top of each other, and we're trying to keep them as close to the previous puddles and the puddles that we're currently spawning as possible so that the room doesn't get entirely filled up. And from here, it's all about just killing the ads as fast as you can and keeping the Gossamer Onslaught web pools as close together as possible. So as you can see there, again, I used Alter Time. We're going to use Blizzard, Frozen Orb, Comet Storm. We're going to Cone of Cold reset. We're going to do another Comet Storm, another Frozen Orb, keeping our Blizzards down, and the ads are going to get nuked really quickly. As a Frost Mage on this fight, this is a perfect fight for us because not only can we get Cone of Cold resets, but we can also just keep the ads permanently slowed, so there's no real worry of them ever reaching the boss. And again, as you can see, I positioned myself right next to the previous webs, and I'm trying to keep them as close to those web pools that are already on the ground as possible so that the room is as clear as it can be. Nearing the end of this fight, if the boss is around 10% health or so, and he's about to summon the next wave of ads, what we can do as a Frost Mage is drop a Frozen Orb and or a Blizzard on the ads so that they are just, slowed in the back, and you can focus your damage on the boss, because if you have enough damage, the boss is going to die before the ads reach the boss. So again, this is a major plus to being a Frost Mage in this dungeon. As you can see, the ads are just permanently slowed, and we're able to finish off the boss without having to expend damage or waste time trying to kill them. Moving on into the trash pull after the first boss. So chances are you guys are going to pull this entire bridge. This pull is deceptively scary. So you're going to get both of these assistant mobs that are basically just going to be hitting your tank. You're going to get the web mage that needs to be kicked. It does web bolts and it does a barrage type ability that needs to be kicked every single time. On top of that, you have the blood guard. These are probably some of the most annoying mobs in any of the current dungeons, in my opinion. What they do, they have an aura where any enemy that is near them is going to be taking 50% reduced damage. On top of that, the Blood Guard is going to do a Locust Swarm ability, which is just a channeled AoE that you can't really do anything about. It's just a lot of damage, and you need to use defensives. You need to live through it. And then its final ability is going to do a frontal attack. Just make sure you're not getting hit by that. But again, this pull, deceptively scary. You need to make sure that this web mage is not casting. You need to kick it every single time. And you want to have the Blood Guard as your main focus. You need to kill that first, so that the 50% damage taken aura falls off of all the other mobs, so you're able to actually cleave them down. So what you'll see here is I'm going to drop my Frozen Orb and my Blizzard. I'm going to use Alter Time. So I have Alter Time running during this Locust Swarm. So I get really, really low here, and I Alter Time back to full HP. That's a great use of Alter Time here. So we're going to be just doing our AoE rotation, but we're going to be mainly focusing on using Glacial Spikes on the Blood Guard to try and get it down as fast as possible. So one thing that we did here, and this is actually where we almost had a full team wipe, is our tank actually pulled an extra group of enemies in. As you can see, we have 2 web mages in this group that are casting on us. As a mage, we can interrupt just like anyone else, but we also have a couple other ways that we can stop. So as you can see, my supernova is on cooldown. Also, my blast wave is available. So you want to use these to try and interrupt these web mages as much as possible. But as you guys will see, all these casts start going off. The Bloodguard is going to start doing Locust Swarm again. Obviously dodged the Impale, but it was just too much for our group to deal with. Again, my kick is on cooldown. My supernova is coming up, which I'm going to use here. I do have Blast Wave as well. Again, Locust Swarm is coming out. I don't have any defensives really. I have Alter Time, but I'm already low, so I don't want to use Alter Time just yet. I used Greater Invis there, and I lived, but unfortunately 2 of our members die, and then I do believe that I end up going down here as well. But we did get the Bloodguard down, but unfortunately I still went down. We just had too many casts and things going off, so definitely be careful about that. I would not recommend pulling an extra pack of mobs into that pull because it's already dangerous enough as is. So one thing you can think about doing there, if your timing is right in the dungeon, you can always think about bloodlusting this pull. We didn't bloodlust here because our bloodlust was still on cooldown when we first started the pull. So what you'll see is the next big Bloodguard pull that we go into, I'm actually going to bloodlust that pull so that we can nuke it down as fast as possible. So as you'll see here, in this next area, we have these Stag Shell Beetle mobs, and what they will do is they will cast Alarm Shrill, and it's pretty much all they do, and they will just repeatedly cast this ability over and over and over. And you need to stun this mob, disorient this mob, knock this mob up in the air, knock this mob back. Any sort of stop on this guy is mandatory, because if Alarm Shrill goes off, what's going to happen is he's going to immediately summon one of the big hulking Bloodguards, which are the annoying mobs that reduce the damage of everything else around them, as well as doing the massive AoE Locust Swarm attack. So Stag Shell, make this your top priority, and you need to ensure that Alarm Shrill does not go off. So you can see in the top right of my screen, just next to my minimap, there is a Bloodguard coming into this pull. We have Bloodlust available, and I'm about to have all my cooldowns, so we're just going to send it here. Honestly, this is a good spot to use Bloodlust. These Bloodguards are really dangerous. These pulls are really dangerous, and you want to get them down as fast as you possibly can. So again, we stack up to 15 stacks of Death's Chill. Blizzard, Frozen Orb, Comet Storm down on the ground. We're going to Kona Cold reset, and we're going to repeat. Again, we're going to be focusing on mainly pumping damage into this Bloodguard with as many Glacial Spikes as we can possibly get out. So moving forward, again, we have another Stag Shell here. We need to ensure that we are stopping this at all costs, on top of kicking the web mages in these pulls. So again, interrupt and kill the Stag Shell as your first priority in any of these pulls. So once you get this Stag Shell and web mage down, you are free to kind of chain these Bloodworkers into the next pull. Again, it's another Stag Shell pull with some casters. So again, it's the same thing here. Focus the Stag Shell down as fast as you can. Don't let Alarm Shrill go off, and kick as many web bolts and revolting volleys and resonating barrages as you can on these web mages. So as you guys finish off these couple of packs here, once the casters are dead and it's just the assistants alive, you can chain them into the next pack of enemies. So this pack here, it is a double Stag Shell pull. So what you want to try and do is group them together so that it's very easy for stops or things like Supernova to hit both of them at the same time to very easily disrupt the Alarm Shrill casts. So if you have some sort of knockback like a Typhoon or a grip from a Death Knight, you want to try and stack the Stag Shells on top of each other if you can. Okay, now next up, we have a Bloodguard pack with a bunch of Bloodworkers. This is a pretty straightforward pack. The Bloodguard is just going to do its normal abilities of Locust Swarm. It also has the damage aura, so the Bloodworkers are going to be taking 50% reduced damage. Also, watch out for the frontal from the Bloodguard. As you guys will see here, I use Alter Time here. The Locust Swarm is a great ability to use Alter Time for because it's very predictable damage, and you can just immediately shoot back up to full health if you use Alter Time right before the ability comes out. So here, just nuke down the Bloodguard and just do AoE. And once you finish up the Bloodguard, you can think about chaining the Bloodworkers into the next boss. Next up, we have Anub'zekt. So this is basically a big version of those Bloodguard mobs that we were just talking about. So this boss is pretty straightforward. He's going to do a frontal impale ability that you'll see right here. You just want to make sure you're not getting hit by that. Next up, the boss is going to do infestations, which is going to put a dot on a random player. That's just going to do a good amount of damage. And once the dot expires, it's going to summon a little insect swarm, which is this circle here on the ground, which is going to kind of just go around the room. And it tends to go towards players. So just make sure you're not getting hit by that. They do a lot of damage. And I believe they put a dot on you as well if you get hit, which can stack up and kill you very quickly. So make sure you're not getting hit by infestation. Next up, the boss is going to do a burrow charge ability. As you can see here, I have it fixated on me. Generally, I've found that this burrow charge tends to pick the player who is standing the farthest away from the boss. So as a mage, if you want to stand at max range, we are probably one of the best classes to deal with this burrow charge, because as you'll see, when this burrow charge goes off, he's going to charge in a line at where I'm standing currently. So as soon as the cast goes off, what you'll see is I'm going to turn my camera and blink out of the way so that the boss charges towards where I was previously and misses me entirely, so I don't run into any danger of dying or getting hit by this. Just keep in mind that as soon as the burrow charge is over, the boss is going to cast Impale at you, which is the frontal ability. So you just want to make sure you move out of this. But another good thing about this is if you blink left or right, generally this Impale is going to be pointed away from your entire group, so no one else besides you has to deal with any of the mechanics from this ability. Next up, we have these web mages that are going to be spawning throughout the fight. As you can see right here, we have a web mage casting Silken Restraint. Now, what this does is it will target a random player, and if this cast goes through, it's going to root them. And it's like a 15-second root, but it can be interrupted. These mobs can be knocked up in the air, they can be stunned. So you need to do whatever you can to prevent Silken Restraints from going through. And you also want to make sure that these web mages are your top priority to kill, because as you guys can see, there's a lot of ground-focused abilities on this fight. There's the frontal, there's the infestations, and the next ability coming up, Eye of the Swarm. If you get rooted in any of these abilities, it's very easy to get comboed and die on this fight. So again, focus the web mages and kill them as fast as you can. Next ability is going to be Eye of the Swarm. So the boss is going to run to the middle of the room, and he's going to create this giant green circle. And this is the safe zone. This circle is going to kind of rotate around the room, and you need to make sure that you're standing within this, because the outer edges of the circle are going to fill up with a green damaging effect that will kill you very, very fast. So you have to fight in this constrained area for the next little part of the fight. It's about 20 seconds or so. And all the while, the boss is going to be doing infestation, and the boss is going to be doing frontals towards the tank during this phase of the fight. So ideally, you want to have your tank height and point the boss on the right-hand side of this circle, so that anytime Impale goes out, it is being sent off into the swarm, so you aren't having to dodge it when you're standing within the circle. So this circle is always going to be moving left. So when the tank points the frontal to the right, as the circle is moving, the entire frontal is going to be pointing off into the area of the room where you guys are in no danger of being hit. So as you guys can see here, we run into the Eye of the Swarm here. We still have a web mage up, so we want to kill this as fast as possible, because if a Silken Restraint goes off here, someone is likely to die. What you guys will see here is the Impale is being cast at our tank. And like I was saying, it is being pointed off into the swarm, so that we have this entire area to play without having to dodge these tornadoes and the frontal at the same time. So again, ideally, your tank wants to point the Impales off into the storm. Now, the boss is going to cast 3 Impales in total before this phase of the fight ends. So again, just make sure you're not standing over there near the tank. I do think, unfortunately, our priest gets hit here and does go down. And he was dead for quite a while in this fight, but we do get a battle res on him, and we actually do end up recovering on this fight. But again, there's going to be a lot going on here. The circle is constantly moving to the left, so you need to be constantly repositioning yourself, making sure that you're not over near the tank. As you can see, another Impale is going out, but he is doing a great job at pointing it off into the storm so that we don't have to dodge it. And so as you guys can see right here, the final Impale of this phase is going out, and as soon as that is over, the Eye of the Swarm mechanic is going to end, and then you're just going to go back into the boss fight as per usual. Again, dodge the Impales and try and bait the burrow charge. I think right here, I was moving back to try to bait the burrow charge, but I think our hunter was just a little bit further away than I was, so he gets the charge on him. But it's no big deal, because hunters are also very good at dodging with turtle and with disengage. Also, again, interrupt the web mages and kill them as fast as possible. Use any sort of stuns or disrupts on them to prevent that cast from going through, and then dodge the tornadoes. You'll probably have to do the Eye of the Swarm mechanic at least 2 times, maybe 3, depending on your key level and your damage. But at this point of the fight, the boss is always going to summon 2 web mages, one back to back. Again, right there, as you guys can see with the Xal'atath Void Emissary, I was able to go in and sneak out a Cone of Cold reset, which is always something that you guys want to keep in mind, is if there's ever 3 enemies close to each other like that, you can run in and get a nice little reset. But as you can see, again, we are in the Eye of the Swarm phase. The tank is shooting the frontals off to the right, while the entire group is kind of hanging on the left hand or middle side of this circle, dodging the tornadoes. And if you guys aren't getting hit, or if you guys aren't running out of the circle, there's no real danger of dying here unless the tank points to the frontal in a really poor position. So again, the third frontal goes off, the Eye of the Swarm is over. As you can see here, I have infestation, so I'm going to put a barrier on myself and drop it over here near these other tornadoes just to keep the room clear. I do believe one more burrow charge goes off, but the boss is almost dead, so we might kill him before the ability even goes out. Yeah, as you can see, so right there, it went on the priest. The priest was pretty close to the boss, so it's not guaranteed every time that the boss will target you as the furthest player away, but it is nice to get distance from you and the boss so that hopefully when it does go on you, you have the easiest time avoiding that ability. All right, now moving on into the final section of this dungeon, you guys are going to have to be dealing with these overseer mobs, as well as these drones and potentially carriers if your tank decides to pull them. So the overseers are going to cast a venom volley, which needs to be kicked every time. It's going to put out a crazy poison dot on the entire group that you do not want going out. Next, the overseers are going to cast erupting webs, which are these circles on the ground, which after the cast goes through are going to erupt. And if you're standing in these, you're going to take a huge hit of damage and you're also going to get stunned. So make this top priority that you're never getting hit by these erupting webs. These carriers, when you first pull them, are going to drop these purple puddles on the ground, which is the same mechanic that the last boss uses, where if you stand or accidentally run into one of these purple puddles, there's going to be a little slime guy that's going to spawn and it's going to root you. And the only way for you to get out is if you interrupt it or if you CC it. So just make sure you're not running into these purple puddles here to ensure that these blood mobs, which you can see right here, aren't going to be rooting you to the ground. So, things like the erupting web aren't going to kill you. Next, on top of that, as you'll see here, the tank is pulling in some of these drones. What these drones do is they're just going to wail on your tank, but they put a stacking debuff on your tank. As you can see here, our tank has 7 stacks of this debuff, and every stack is going to decrease the movement speed of the player stacking. And I believe up to 25 times. Once you get to 25 stacks, you are immobile and you can't move. So your healer needs to be basically dispelling this on cooldown so that your tank doesn't get rooted to the ground and can move out of mechanics, particularly the erupting webs. So ideally, again, you want your healer to be using their dispel on cooldown to be able to help your tank out here. So finishing up this pull, again, dodge the erupting webs on the ground. I do believe our hunter gets hit here. Yeah, it looks like our hunter got hit there. So as you guys can see, it does a lot of damage, and our hunter was getting comboed by some of the carriers leaping out at him. So again, make note to dodge the erupting webs as much as you can. Kick the venom volley every single time. You do not want that going off. And then from here, just continue doing your AoE rotation. I have my Icy Veins rolling, so as you guys can see, we're at 12 stacks of Death Chill, and we are just keeping our Blizzards and our Frozen Orbs and our Comet Storms rolling on cooldown. As you guys will notice, I have my Cone of Cold available, but I opted not to use it because my Comet Storm wasn't available. And you want to, if your Comet Storm's coming up soon, you want to save Comet Storm so that you can use Comet Storm into Cone of Cold to get a reset to use Comet Storm again. So right there, we just did our Comet Storm, Cone of Cold reset. And then again, from here, we're just keeping our Blizzards down on as many targets as possible. Frozen Orb on cooldown. We're throwing off our Ice Lances and our Flurries to consume our excess Frost and Fire. And, prioing the Overseer, casting Glacial Spikes when we are able to shatter them on the Overseer. And basically, just doing as much AoE damage as we possibly can. Luckily, these pulls as a Frost Mage are very fun because, as you guys will notice, my Frozen Orb is getting reset very, very quickly. Now, you can also shifting power too to reduce some of your cooldowns, but generally here, it's just all about Blizzards and Frozen Orbs and Comet Storms. Again, I have my Comet Storm and my Cone of Cold ready, but I noticed that the tank is chaining these enemies. So I was going to hold on to it for a second, but it looked like he only pulled 2 extra drones. So I decided to send it there with my Cone of Cold reset. So going on into the next pack here, I do have my Icy Veins coming up too. So I'm not going to send it here. I'm going to hold on for a second until I know that the tank is about to chain. I could, however, use Icy Veins early to stack up my Death Chill preemptively, but I opted to just wait until I knew the tank was going to pull this pack of enemies. So again, there's 2 Overseers in this pull, so you need to have, players focusing both of the Overseers and ensuring that those casts never go out. There's going to be 2 waves of erupting webs that go out, so just constantly be moving. Once the second set of erupting webs goes off, you're okay to just kind of stand still for a little bit until the next cast goes through. And again, here, we have our Cone of Cold reset, so we're going to Comet Storm, we're going to Cone of Cold, Comet Storm, Frozen Orb, and Blizzard. And again, using our Glacial Spikes into the Overseers for as much prio damage as we possibly can. Now, as you can see, we are finished with trash percentage, and we are making our way into the final boss of Ara-Kara. This is probably one of the harder fights for pugs in all of the current dungeons. However, if you understand all of the mechanics, this fight really isn't too bad. It does just get a little hectic. So as you'll see here, the boss is casting erupting webs, just like the overseers did in the trash packs before. So just make sure you're not standing in those when they go off. What you guys will notice as well, there are poison debuffs that the boss will put out on 3 players, indicated by these green waves right here. And it's going to do a lot of poison damage over time. And once this ability is either dispelled or it expires, it's going to shoot out these green waves that will fly through the entire room. So you need to make sure that if you have cultivated poisons on you, you need to make sure you're using a defensive to keep yourself alive. And when the effect is, again, either dispelled or expires, make sure you're not getting hit by other people's waves. So as a ranged character, you can stand pretty far back and make sure that your waves aren't pointed at anyone. I'd say it's a little bit harder for melee to ensure that you're not going to be hitting anyone with this. But again, just try and position it so the 2 waves that are coming out of either side of your character aren't immediately, pointed right at one of your teammates. Next, you guys are going to notice these little blood worker guys running throughout the room. So these guys have 1 HP. If you hit them with any damaging ability, they will run off. And what they do is when they get hit, they're going to leave behind these purple pools on the ground. These purple pools will root you if you stand in them. It's going to summon a little slime looking dude, and it's going to root you to the ground. And what you can do is for this next ability coming in called Cosmic Singularity, the boss is going to attempt to pull everyone into her. And then once the cast goes off, it's going to explode. And if you are squishy or you don't have a huge defensive rolling, there's a high likelihood that you're going to die. Also, if you get hit with Cosmic Singularity, it's going to give you a huge damage done decrease for a little bit after getting hit. So it's pretty imperative that you don't get hit by that. So again, you want to make sure that you're hitting these blood workers to drop enough pools around the room to ensure everyone has a safe spot to stand during Cosmic Singularity. Now, as a ranged character, especially as a mage, particularly Frost, we have a lot of instant cast spells. So what you can do is throw off Ice Lances, preferably not empowered by Fingers of Frost, because all it takes is 1 point of damage to hit these guys for them to drop their pool on the ground, so that everyone, again, has somewhere to stand. So what you'll see here is in about 5 seconds, Cosmic Singularity is going to come out. When this happens, again, the boss is going to pull everyone in. So you need to try and look around the room and preemptively see where all the puddles are so that you can choose one that you want to go to. Obviously, you can run into situations where, you and another one of your teammates pick the same puddle and then you start panicking. This is why, as a ranged character, you want to focus on hitting as many blood workers as you can. So there's always enough puddles around the room for everyone to at least have one to stand in. So once Cosmic Singularity is done casting, as you guys can see here, I am being rooted by this blood mob, and it is doing Grasping Blood. As you guys can see, it's also casting down here on our healer. The way you get out of this is by either interrupting this blood mob or by CCing it. As a mage, my favorite way to get out of this, it's an instant cast spell. It doesn't require me to change my target or do any sort of interrupting, is Blast Wave. So every single time that I get rooted, you guys will see me, as soon as Cosmic Singularity is over, I'm going to use Blast Wave to knock the mob back to get myself out. So I feel like that's one of the best ways that you can free yourself. If you have a teammate that is unable to get out, you can interrupt, you can use Supernova, all that to help get them out. Now, another thing that we can do here, as you guys might notice, I have Icy Veins currently rolling, and I'm up to 12 stacks of Death's Chill. I stacked this up very quickly because, as you guys can see, once you free yourself from the root, the ads are still going to be alive and they're going to kind of chase players around the room, which means that there are extra ads for us to cleave our Frostfire bolts off of to stack up Death's Chill really quickly. So once we free ourselves, all the bloods are going to become actual mobs that you can hit. So as you guys can see here, my abilities are cleaving, my Frostfire bolts are cleaving, adding to Death's Chill stacks. Another thing that we can do as a Frost Mage is, again, once there's enough mobs that are in close enough proximity to each other, we can Cone of Cold to get a reset. So as you guys will see throughout this fight, I think I do it 2 different times. You can run in and get a Cone of Cold to reset your Frozen Orb and your Comet Storm, which is just extra free damage if you're able to get in there and do that. So again, focus on the blood workers. As a mage or as a ranged character, it's very easy for us to kill these in ideal spots. And then again, when Cosmic Singularity is coming out, you find a pool to stand in. As soon as Cosmic Singularity goes out, I'm going to Blast Wave to free myself to avoid the erupting webs on the ground. And then as you guys will see here, I'm going to blink in, or I guess I just run in here, but I get a Cone of Cold reset so that I'm able to Frozen Orb and Comet Storm twice. I'm going to drop a Blizzard too, just to help keep the ads contained. And then we're going to Shifting Power to help reduce our cooldowns. Coming up, I have Icy Veins. And again, keep in mind, there's a bunch of extra ads here. So when I use Icy Veins after I kill this blood worker, I'm going to spam Frost Firebolts because as you guys can see, they're cleaving, and we're already up to 10 Death Chill stacks on a fight where normally, you know, you're only really hitting the boss. You're able to cheese this really easily. And then again, you know, we're up to 15 stacks already. Dodge the poisons, use a defensive if you need to. As a mage, I always try and find a far puddle and blink to it so that I'm not forcing my melee or my tank to have to scramble and try and run really, really far away from the boss so that they can always get the puddles that are closer into the boss. Again, right there, ran in and I got a Cone of Cold reset, so we were able to throw out another Frozen Orb and drop Comet Storm back to back. And then again, from here, it's all about just living the poison waves, dodging the actual waves that come out, making sure that we're killing enough blood workers so there's enough pools on the ground, and then ensuring that we root ourselves to avoid Cosmic Singularity. So as you guys will see here, Cultivated Poison is going out. I have it on me, so I'm just going to use Greater Invis to help reduce some of the damage of the first initial hits from this ability. I do have Ice Cold, I do have Alter Time, but I didn't feel like I was in really any danger there. So again, trying to go for a far blood puddle so that, you know, our melee doesn't have to run out super far. I'm going to Shifting Power here, Blast Wave to get myself free, and then we're just going to continue our, you know, single target rotation from here of making sure that we're shattering our Glacial Spikes so that our Pyroblast is also critting, and, you know, trying to just keep Frozen Orbs and Blizzards and Comet Storms rolling on all these ads just to, you know, help slow them down so that they're not just meleeing random players. And from here, you know, we're going to go ahead and finish off the boss fight. As you guys can see right there, got another little Cone of Cold reset right at the tail end of the fight on all the Bloods, which is another reason why I like to put down Blizzard, is because it helps kind of keep them contained so that if I do have the opportunity for a nice little reset, I can go in and send it. And with the final boss going down, as you guys can see, we did 8.14 million overall DPS throughout the course of this key, which I'm pretty happy with. All things considered, you know, we had quite a few deaths, and this run could have gone a lot smoother. We actually almost had a full team wipe on the trash pull after the first boss. So being able to finish out this key doing anything over 8 million overall DPS is pretty satisfying for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching today's video. I'm going to be covering the rest of the Season 3 dungeons throughout the course of my next couple of videos. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. But with that said, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. And until next time, peace.